Welcome to the Harber Show, Colorado Business News. We're talking about craft beer. This is part 2 of our special 2-part series. And my guests today are 4 experts, including from the Colorado Brewers Guild, the Marketing and Communications Director, Steve Karowski. Steve, again, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
And next to Steve, Bart Watson. Bart is the Chief Economist of the Brewers Association with 2 very august degrees, so I'm glad to have you here.
Great to be here.
And Todd Thibault, the culture czar from the Breckenridge Brewery, of course, part of the whole, is it called the Wynkoop Holding Company or something to that?
Breckenridge Wynkoop Holding Company.
Oh, excuse me, yeah. Breckenridge. I'm surprised you got to go first. I guess it's
alphabetical.
Alphabetical, exactly. And then Laura Long, a lobbyist in the industry as well, and someone who has personal experience working at a brewery. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about trends in the industry and maybe some of your own personal experiences. I mean, Laura, you worked in a brewery. Have all of you, Bart, did you ever work in a brewery?
I've never worked in a brewery. I've been in many breweries, but never worked in one.
And obviously, Todd, you are in a brewery all the time.
I am. A little over 19 years with Breckenridge Brewery.
Wow, and the entire time with Breckenridge?
Uh-huh.
Wow, impressive. Steve, how about you?
I'm going into my 18th year in craft beer. I spent time at Wynkoop and Breckenridge breweries before they were married together.
Wow.
Spent time doing marketing and communications there. Done some consulting for a number of small breweries in the state on branding and marketing, and I'm now full-time with the Colorado Brewers Guild, which is one of the coolest jobs in craft beer there is. I get to tell people around the world what oranges are to Florida, craft beer is to Colorado. It's the coolest job.
That's great. Certainly the business has a lot of very small businesses in it. Do you see, a couple questions, do you see a lot of breweries coming and going? Do a lot of the little guys and gals end up failing for different reasons, and if so, why? I would assume there are not that many who really make it big. So talk a little bit about that. Bart, you want to start us off?
Sure. So, certainly it's a small business, and, running a small business comes with a lot of challenges. And so we do see, a decent number of brewery closings, but compared to other small businesses, it's been a tremendously successful industry in recent years. I often like to use the brew pub example because it's very much like a restaurant, and 60% of restaurants close within the first 3 years of opening. Since we've been tracking in the early 1980s, more than half of the brew pubs that have ever opened are still open. And so clearly there's that growing consumer demand is creating tremendous opportunities for breweries that can differentiate themselves either as a production brewery or a brew pub from existing market offerings.
So the demand's so high that in this industry, even if you don't necessarily do a good job, you could still survive.
That's less true than it used to be, yeah. I mean, maybe it was true 5 or 10 years ago, but I mean, certainly the competition has really ratcheted up, particularly in a place like Colorado, and so now, quality is a minimum bar and differentiation as a second bar is becoming more important.
So how do you differentiate yourself? Because Todd, you guys are not a tiny brewery. You guys have run a pretty big operation.
It is a pretty big operation. We're basically 1 brewery, 3 brew pubs, and 9 restaurants. So it has become quite the empire when you speak of craft beer. But when you talk about difficulties of business a little bit, and as Bart mentioned, brew pubs, if you're thinking there, you have not only a restaurant, which is a tricky business, you're also adding another business of brewing, and you could possibly even be adding a third of distribution. So it's 3 businesses. So the opportunity to fail in one of those to take the other 2 down is quite large. But that hasn't happened with most of the breweries around.
So how many barrels a year do you all produce of everything? Not counting root beer.
At Breckenridge Brewery, we'll probably hit right around 75,000 barrels this year. And then if you add in the Wynkoop brew pub, I think they're hitting about 2,000, 2,500. Our brew pub up in Breckenridge is going to hit about 1,000 barrels. And then Phantom Canyon Brewing Company down in Colorado Springs is going to probably hit about 800 or 900 barrels there too.
So who are some, tell me who are the biggest in the state, the top 2 or 3, and what kind of volume are they doing? Is anybody, no, I assume no one's approaching 6 million, or is anyone?
The largest brewer in the state is that's considered a craft brewer still is New Belgium Brewing Company. They've gone over 1 million barrels or or will this year likely. They're right around 1 million barrels.
And they're in Fort Collins, right?
Yep, which may sound like a lot to people at home, but in a 200 million barrel industry, that means they're about 0.5% of the total U.S. industry. But they're the largest in the state by far.
And how about the non-craft folks? What who's at the top there, and what kind of volume in comparison are we looking at?
So in Colorado, it's certainly Miller Coors with their facility in Golden. Not exactly sure what that one's producing, but it has a capacity around 10 or 11 million barrels at that single brewery. As a company, they're producing 55 million barrels in the U.S. And together,
so they have a quarter of the entire market.
Yeah, and Anheuser-Busch is much bigger than them. Last year, Anheuser-Busch was 95 million barrels in the U.S. So together, those two are roughly 70-75% of the U.S. beer market.
That's extraordinary. That's really extraordinary. So really, you all are just a lot of little guys and gals kind of. Do they pay attention to you?
I think they do now.
Yeah.
Craft is becoming such an important segment in the market that now we're seeing even those big breweries trying to do some craft products like Blue Moon and Shock Top are their attempts at that's a loaded word. They're their versions of a Belgian wheat beer or a German wheat beer.
And they've also purchased craft breweries.
Right.
And I assume, if you're a craft brewery and you get a great buyout offer, I can't blame a business owner for taking it, but do the rest of the folks in the craft industry kind of frown on that or not?
It's unusual, and I think that the pushback comes mainly from the beer drinkers, the fans. They don't like to see it. And I think that most of the brewers in Colorado, they started out small and they were driving cases around in the back of their pickup trucks. And I think that we're still very close to those roots. But on the other hand, from a business perspective, it's kind of hard to fault someone for taking a payout. I'll give you an example. I was just talking to the head brewer of the Budweiser facility in Fort Collins, who happens to be a woman, which is really exciting. I love seeing women in the brewing industry. But she was saying that Goose Island, which is a craft brewery from Chicago that Budweiser recently bought, their IPA is now the 3rd top-selling IPA in the country, and obviously she's spinning it in their favor, but she says that that brewery really appreciates it because now they're taking this beer that was taking up most of their production capacity, that's been offloaded to the bigger guy, and now they can go back and focus on some of the smaller things that they'd like to make that they weren't able to before.
So do you see the big folks buying more craft breweries or coming up with their own craft products? What, Steve?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that trend isn't going to stop. Craft is growing at a rate that is double digits and has been for a long time, where the global breweries are not. They're actually losing market share. So that shows you that there is a definite shift in the way this country is dealing with beer and buying beer and drinking beer. And so these people that own these big global breweries are no dummies. They know, they see the trends, they see what's happening, and they're getting their share. And these small brewery owners, it's the American dream being put right in front of them, and it's hard for them to say no. So I think this trend will continue for some time.
But it sounds like there's such a growth in the industry. And in fact, I want to talk about that, that the number of craft brewers continues to literally explode. So let's talk about that, and if it's headed towards a ledge, or is the trend, the chart, going to go up? So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk more about craft brewing.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. For information about the program, who our upcoming guests and topics are, and ways you can participate, please go to our website. That's harbertv.com. And most of all, thanks for watching.
I'm Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland.
Hi, I'm Jim Cameron, Director of Avatar.
I'm Christina Johnson, former Undersecretary of Energy.
Hi, I'm Oliver Stone.
Hi, I'm Mike Peters. I'm the creator of Mother Goose and Grimm.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
I would encourage you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. It's good fun.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show because he's a really cool guy.
Please watch the Aaron Harber Show, on which I do appear.
I want you to watch the Aaron Harber Show. Grimmy watches it every day.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter and find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Your opinions, ideas, suggestions, and criticisms related to guests, topics, questions, or the host are welcome. Please send an email to producer@harbortv.com.
And welcome back to the Aaron Harber Show, Colorado Business News. We're talking about craft brewing. So one of the numbers that we've been talking about is this literal explosion in the number of craft breweries. Here in Colorado, as we have over 300 breweries licensed. Nationally, you have over 4,000. Are we headed towards a saturation point? Do we have too many breweries? Not enough? Where do you think it's going? Steve, I want to start with you.
Well, we're seeing growth in Colorado at amazing clips, and our economic impact study we did for 2014 shows that brewers combined for over $1 billion in revenue.
In Colorado?
In Colorado
alone.
Yes, and it's over 6,000 jobs, and those numbers are going up and up. And so, no, a lot of these breweries that are opening are small neighborhood breweries. They're not all fighting for shelf space. They all don't want to be the next biggest business out there. So I don't think the saturation or the bubble is a thing yet. I think there's still a lot of room for breweries to open and make really delicious beer on small quantities for their neighborhoods. I think the danger is getting into those shelves. If your business plan is to win that shelf space, you better be really good at brewing beer and at the business of selling beer too.
So that's a really fascinating business model, because what you're talking about is in where most people assume whatever business you start, you always want to get as big as you can be. This is a business model that includes, one of the business models, not all of it, but one is to say, hey, our goal is to have a successful single location. Or maybe two, and not everyone is looking to have 20 brew pubs or shipping 200,000 barrels a year. So I think that's really interesting and different for what most people think of when you go into business, that you want to be as big as possible.
Yeah, our business in specifically Colorado and the Rocky Mountain region was so good, and we've tripled the size of Breckenridge Brewery in the last 4 years. Not bad for a brewery that's been around for 25 years. And so we invested in a brand new facility, about $40 million, in the city of Littleton, and just able to grow. And we decided to stay right here in Colorado because this is where most of our business was.
What are some of the economic impacts here in Colorado of the industry? Steve, you mentioned $1 billion a year in revenue. Obviously, that's certainly significant. How about in terms of jobs, careers? What kind of opportunities, Bart, do
And when you look at the wider rings around the economic impact, it grows. So, study by CU Leeds found that the brewers had $1 billion impact, and we've done work at the Brewers Association that looks at all the other impacts from suppliers, the distributors, from retailers, and all those ripples that go out in the economy, and found that the total impact is about $2.7 billion, which I actually think is conservative because it doesn't factor in things like beer festivals and beer tourism. And what we're seeing is these businesses create other businesses. We have suppliers here who manufacture can lines. We have other businesses that have sprung up to serve the brewing industry and other states' brewing industries because Colorado is a leader in craft brewing.
What other states are considered leaders in craft brewing?
I think you can look at Oregon. I think you can look at California. Washington does very well. Michigan has some really powerful players going on there.
All right, when I think of a brew pub, I think of someone, serving beer, but obviously there are many other jobs and job opportunities being created by this industry. Give me some examples of the variety of job opportunities.
Well, we see biologists. We have making beer is a live culture. It's a live thing. There's it's a living organism with all that yeast in there. So we have biologists that maintain labs. We have chemists and engineers that build these breweries and put them together. We've got national sales gurus that lead the way and lead the charge for these breweries, and branding experts. We've got service experts who run the tasting rooms in the restaurants. So the talent that's coming into craft beer and the people it's attracting is incredible. People are leaving jobs to be rocket scientists to come and open their own brewery and simplify their lives and do exactly what they want to do. So yeah, it's attractive, but it's necessary to have these super high-powered brains coming into craft beer and making our industry bigger and smarter.
Laura, I'd be interested in the interplay, or what your take on the interplay between the fact that you have this tremendous growth in craft beer, you have a demand on the part of Coloradans, obviously for quality product at a very high level, for a variety in that product and a willingness to pay for that product. At the same time, you have an effect. I'd be interested in what you think, and each of you think the effect is the fact that Colorado was the first state, one of the first states in the nation to legalize the use of recreational marijuana. How has that affected the industry one way or another, or not at all? I'd be interested in your opinions on that.
That's an interesting question, and my first thought is that not at all. I don't know, maybe there is some overlap between the kind of person who likes to be out in the mountains and play outside, and who likes to enjoy a craft beer. But I really think that they're not related. I think that legalized marijuana really comes from Colorado's long tradition of, we're kind of independents. We want the government off our lawn. And I think that that's just kind of an expression of that. Whereas craft beer, the leading school of thought in cultural anthropology is that it was beer and not bread that caused early humans to settle down and quit their hunter-gatherer nomadic ways and take up the business of agriculture. So for the last 9,000 years we've been brewing beer, and I don't know how long weed's been around. Maybe it was invented in the 70s, but
no, I think it's probably been around 9,000 years too. But so that's interesting. Any other takes on that, comments on that? Because certainly, we were in the vanguard. And other states look to us, so I'd be kind of curious what your thoughts are. Todd?
I personally haven't seen really a difference or a shift or a drop in business whatsoever.
Maybe an increase in business. I don't know. You go to your brew pub because you're hungry or something like that.
Yeah, the academic studies on it are very mixed, whether it's a substitute or something that actually supplements. But certainly I think that the increased focus on Colorado maybe has been good for breweries. I mean, we've had more tourists here, and they get to see the wide variety of amazing beers we have in the state. So maybe it's been positive in building Colorado's brand. I'm not sure.
Steve, any thoughts?
Oh, I think Colorado's been imbibing in both of these things for a long time, and it's just because it's legalized. It's not like a new thing. Like, I think it's just they're buying it and legalized in different ways now. So I don't think people are dropping their craft beer consumption to enjoy some legalized recreational marijuana. Yeah, I think it's just a different way to get it now. So
we're naive to think that it wasn't there before.
Right. Yeah. So I think I think it's kind of a non-issue. I think it's bringing a lot of attention to our state with tourism and economics and things of that nature. But we haven't seen any sales dips in craft beer since it's been legalized.
I thought it might increase sales. I don't know. I'm not an expert on either one. Obviously. Anyway, we're going to take our last break, and we'll be right back to talk about craft beer.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. We depend on contributions to support our work to bring you some of the nation's and world's top opinion leaders. Individuals, businesses, foundations, and other nonprofits make tax-deductible contributions to the Democracy and Media Education Foundation to allow us to work for you. To find out more or to make a donation, please go to dmefd.org. Thanks for watching the show and for your support. I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter and find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Your opinions, ideas, suggestions, and criticisms related to guests, topics, questions, or the host are welcome. Please send an email to producer@harbortv.com.
Welcome back to the show. This is part 2 of our 2-part series on craft beer, and this is our final segment. So it's time for rapid fire, which probably won't happen because I ask long questions. But okay, so the industry, one of the things that fascinates me is you're in an industry that serves, of course, alcoholic beverages. We have a lot of societal problems associated with alcoholic beverages. What kind of discussions occur in the craft beer industry about this, and what kind of responsibility do craft brewers feel they have in terms of the consumption of their products? And Laura, start off with you.
We take our responsibility to our communities very seriously, and the craft brewers as an industry are working with other alcohol industry players, stakeholders in the state, as well as the Liquor Enforcement Division, to support policies that are good for public safety. We're absolutely committed to not serving minors, underage people under 21. We're very committed to not over-serving. I think that alcohol, beer in particular, is a beverage that can be enjoyed very responsibly and is a great thing for our communities and for our bodies. It's chock full of vitamins and soluble fiber. And
I have it for breakfast every day.
You could. You should.
You should.
I know Todd does.
Oatmeal stout.
So what about the challenge of, certainly we have so many problems associated with alcohol. What else can we do to address those challenges? Give me some thoughts or ideas, or what the industry thinks it could do or government should do.
I think a big part of just responsible brewing and the more education we can give to our consumers. For instance, alcohol content. Not all beers are to be treated the same when it comes to alcohol content. So where, yes, one beer, you're fine at 2. There are some, one will do the trick. And so those kind of educational items I think are really important, and we can do that. The nice thing about it, for those of us with craft beer bars, brew pubs, we can certainly carry that message directly from the brewmaster.
One of the interesting aspects, when Colorado, it used to be you could drink beer when you were 18, and now across the country it's pretty much 21. One of the challenges is that one of the results is that there is a lot of binge drinking by people under 21. Would it make sense? And I know there's a movement in certain quarters to restore the drinking age to 18, and the argument being much more important to have people drink responsibly and learn how to drink responsibly at that age than engage in things like binge drinking. Does that make sense, Steve? Should we take a look at lowering the age back to 18?
Oh, I don't know. As far as craft beer goes, I don't think many people binge drink on craft beers. We talked about how expensive they were earlier, right? To binge drink on something like that, these college students or younger kids or whoever binge drinks probably spends a little bit less on their beer, and they go that way. I couldn't say what would happen if we took it back to 18. Hey, I was able to buy a beer in Colorado when I was 18 years old. I remember that. I'm pretty functional these days and survived it, right? But 3.2, I remember it not being very easy to catch a buzz when we drank that beer. But binge drinking is not an issue for craft brewers. I think one thing craft brewers encourage within our tasting rooms and our pubs is a real sense of community and responsible beer drinking just by going there. There's not TVs there. People go, it's like the afternoon coffee shop. They have a beer or two before they go home for dinner, converse with friends, families, coworkers. And to us, that's a very responsible way to enjoy a beer, which is the beverage of moderation. It's usually the least alcoholic beverage choices between hard spirits and wine. So that's just kind of what our culture promotes in the first place, is communication, conversation, and having a beer or two, not going down the binge route.
And our demographic and consumers tend to be very active. They're the ones that are out mountain biking through the weekends and hiking the mountains, and really the craft beer becomes the reward at the end of the trail. So I think our drinker isn't really into that kind of thing.
Right. Well, I've been at the Wynn Coop watching a game, so I mean, if it's a long game, you're going to drink more than a couple beers. That's all right. When you look ahead in the future, what either on the brewing side or societal side, give me some ideas of potentially disruptive technologies, advancements, societal changes. Do you see anything in the next decade or two happening? You're nodding your head, Steve. Can you?
Well, it could be ingredient supplies. It could be a hop shortage, a grain shortage, something like that. That could affect our business. Maybe even a different supply, cans or bottles. Could be a big price increase in any one of those things that could shake the market up. We had a hop shortage a few years ago, and it changed the industry forever on how brewers buy and secure hops moving forward. We got through that, but I'm sure there's going to be some other changes we're going to have to face moving forward.
I actually can understand that. I grew barley, believe it or not, for Coors. I was a Coors grower. I live on a farm, and we did a phenomenal job. It was their 50th year for third-party growers, and we set a record. Our crop yield was higher than any other first-year grower in the history of Coors, and they thought we were really smart. But what happened was we accidentally planted twice as much seed as we were supposed to, so we had this incredibly great crop, but ruined the soil, so we couldn't grow barley the next year. So, so I could see. So there was a shortage just due to us, probably right off the bat. Other disruptive.
So I think one that's already happened and is going to continue to happen is information technology has really changed how the beer lover interacts with brands, how they learn about beer. We talked a little bit about education earlier, but some of the apps now, Untapped, where consumers can very quickly, wade through the multitude of choices that they face, get information about these beers on social media, interact with brewers, and I think that's really allowed a lot of the small, nimble players in the craft brewing industry to be successful in a way that was very difficult in an era when you didn't have those channels to directly interact with your consumers.
One of the things I want to mention is I'm astounded at the success of the Great American Beer Festival. Over 60,000 attendees. What's going on there in a nutshell? I know we only have a minute left. Can someone tell me how that has just literally exploded?
It's our industry's Super Bowl, and it gets bigger every year. People want to come. I think there are about 40% of the attendees, Bart probably knows better than I do, that are from out of state, but I don't know, half to a little over half are from right here in Denver. It's got a huge economic impact, and the tickets sell out in minutes. I think this year they were gone in less than an hour for 60,000 tickets. So
that is amazing. Amazing. Okay, last quick question since you're talking, Laura. I don't see a lot of women in the industry. Should I? What's going on, and what's your take on that, being a woman in the industry?
Thank you for asking that. So there are actually a lot of women in the industry. Here in Colorado, we have more than a dozen female brewers. We've got female microbiologists that are working in the state, lots of women in other roles in the industry. And interestingly, women craft beer drinkers just took about 25% of the, I think 25% of the Colorado craft beer drinkers now are women. So that's been growing. And I think that there's a lot to appeal to women in craft beer. It can be very complex, and women statistically are better tasters than men. We have more taste buds, and we hold on to them longer. No offense.
I didn't know that.
It's true. Women love craft beer, and there's styles like sour ales and gozas and interesting these kind of fringe kind of beers are just kind of coming into the market now that have so much to offer. I think there are more taste points in beer than there are in wine, actually. So for the gourmand and for the female who really wants to get into it, there's opportunity both to drink and to work.
Okay, well, on that note, I want to thank my guests. Make sure you watch part 1. This is part 2 of our special series on craft beer. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.